Today is January 1st, 2014. I'm Larry Nazworth, and this is my mom, Lucille Nazworth. And we're just going to do a little interview about her life and start and see where it goes. Mom, you were born in 1936, which was when Roosevelt was reelected for a second term. It was towards the end of the Great Depression. What are some of your first memories as a child?
As a child, I was the baby of the family and very attached to my mother. And we had a simple life. Of course, everybody did just about then. But we would get just maybe one toy for Christmas. But Mama always made sure we had something for Christmas and all. And I remember helping her clip out coupons. That was my job.
They had coupons back then.
They had coupons for Silver Cow milk, evaporated milk, and Mama would buy dishes with them, and mostly dishes, I imagine, is what she got with them. Because you can imagine with 5 kids how dishes went through.
Now, why did you use condensed milk? Did it have anything to do with the war, or was it just the way it was? Was it cheaper?
It was cheaper, yes, definitely. And Mama cooked with it, and we would dilute it to drink it, because we didn't get very much, regular malt milk. So.
Right.
And if we did, it was like a quart, and it went 5 ways. So you can imagine.
Right, with 2 parents and 5 kids.
Yeah.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
Right. So what stands out most about your childhood?
Well, we were just real close family, and back then there wasn't a whole lot to do except fish and play. We skated and played with dolls and did some board games.
What kind of board games do you remember?
I think I remember Monopoly. Was it Monopoly? And it seemed like checkers. Yeah.
Checkers.
Chinese checkers, particularly. So. And jacks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The ball and the little things that you stepped on. Is that what your mom stepped on instead of Legos like we did?
Yes, probably.
What was it like to be the youngest of 5 children?
I probably had it better than any of them, really, because times were getting better then. And then, like I said, Mama had 4 children in 5 years.
Wow.
And then there was a 4 years lapse when I came along. So I got a lot more attention than the others did.
So you got a little busy.
Yeah, for some reason.
Wow, fortunately. I didn't realize they were all that close together. Your daddy worked. What did he do?
Well, he worked at the prison before I was born, and they lived out at the State Farm. And Mama and them had it real good because they got meats and vegetables and all that, the good food. And then Mama had some help too from the trustees.
Mm-hmm.
And then they moved to town. Daddy, for some reason, changed jobs or something, and he worked at the bank, and I don't remember that because he started at the post office in 1940, so I was 4 years old then.
Right.
So he worked there for 30 years and retired when he was 70 in 1970. So that was a good thing for him, retirement and all.
Yeah, that's hard for me because I was born in '69, and that's all I remember. He was retired, but I don't remember him being old and slow and all that.
No, he never was up until the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And he was in China, yeah.
Lived 28 more years after retirement.
Yeah.
Stayed active forever.
Yes, he did. The Mama did too until.
She did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have that many memories of her as a child, but I remember her always, taking care of us when we'd go over there and.
Oh yeah.
Boil them like her daughter does my children.
I think it was worse. She let you take out every pot and pan in her little tiny kitchen. She had about 100, and y'all loved to play with that in the middle of the kitchen. So.
I deny any of that ever happened, but okay.
Well, it did.
Talking about your mom, tell me an important lesson that your mother taught you. You remember anything?
Goodness.
I'm sure there was many, but...
Yeah, just to, if you said you were going to do something, you did it, if at all possible.
Right.
So that was the main thing I remember, that you stuck to your word to do things.
You think a lot of that's changed with society today?
I think so.
Sadly.
Yes.
Tell me something special about your father, Granddaddy McRae.
Well, Daddy loved to fish. All the McRaes love to fish.
Still do.
Yeah. And it's just, a thing that's handed down. And anyway, I remember after I got big enough to know, he and Mama loved to fish as much as Daddy. And they would go out some mornings when it was so cold, they had to chip the ice off the boat seats. Yeah.
It's a good thing you live in Florida.
Yes. And also, we would all go fishing when we were all, younger. All 5 children and Mama and Daddy in a little rowboat out in the middle of the lake. The Lord watched over us. And there was so many of us, we couldn't all have poles. Some of us had to use the drop line. Of course, I was one of those that used the drop line. But God watched out over us, and then afterwards, a lot of times, they would build a fire, and Mama would cook the fish right there and make a pot of coffee, and that's when you did it over the fire. I'm sure it was strong, but we had a good time doing that. So.
That's good. I like that. What was your first job?
My first job was at Priest's Dime Store. I started when I started when I was 13, and the inspectors came in, and it was just like a month before I was 14. So I had to quit until I was 14. But then he let me work on Saturdays, and during the summer I got work. And my favorite job there was a candy counter.
And why is that?
I don't know what that was, but boy, I loved it. He was real good to work for. He let us eat all the candy we wanted.
And how much candy did you eat?
I would be afraid to estimate that, But I've handed that down too, to my children and their children.
I see. So is that where you learned to enjoy chocolate covered cherry?
Oh my goodness, yes.
And did they make that stuff in a big factory somewhere else, or was it made locally? Do you know?
Oh no, nothing was made locally as far as that's concerned, but we only had chocolate candy in the winter time because the stores weren't air conditioned. And that was when we got the chocolate candy in, that was a blast.
Yeah.
Even Mr. Priest was back there, taking candy.
That's funny. So tell me how you met Dad.
Well, actually, I guess we met in the halls at good old BHS.
Bradford High School.
Yeah. And I don't know how we got really started up on conversations or anything, but that was in October 1950. I was in the 9th grade. I was 14 years old, and your daddy was in the 11th grade. And somehow or another we got together, and he asked me to go to a football game with him, and we did. That's that first date.
Now, is that the same football game where you jumped off the stadium?
I don't know what you're talking about, Larry.
I remember Daddy telling a story about him daring you, or somebody dared you to jump off the high school stadium, and just kidding, and you actually did it?
Well, he said, you go first and I'll come down afterwards. Well, I believed him. I did.
Did you break anything?
I don't think so. But I thought I knocked the breath out of me, probably.
I bet. So your first date was at the football game?
A football game, yeah.
A football game? How long did it take before you knew that he was the one?
Gosh, right away, I guess,
Yeah. And how did Dad propose?
I don't know. When you go together for 4 years, it just kind of, happens. But I got my ring and a bag of popcorn at the theater.
Yeah?
Yeah, so that's how I came about my engagement ring.
At the Florida Theater?
Yeah.
Because there was more than one theater right
Oh
there.
yeah, we were big. We had 3 theaters.
How long? I know they were there during the war. Did they stay around for a while, the three theaters?
One of them did, and the one that was next door to the big Florida theater. But over where Badcock Furniture is, they had I think they call it Parks Theater, and they always show double features. So you go there and get your money's worth, you know, for 12 cents.
Did they still have the newsreels back then? Did you
Oh
remember?
yeah, that's the only way we kept up with the news. Really, was the newsreels. So, excuse me.
Do you remember TV at all when you got TV? When your parents got TV, or?
Well, my parents got TVs after your daddy came home from Korea, and but the first TV I ever remember was the Landrums. They were friends of ours, and he was a lawyer, so you know they were
to do,
yeah. But it was a big old box and a little black and white screen, but it was, you know, really something.
Yeah.
So
did you guys have a lot of radio programs you listened to as kids?
Well, not really. When Daddy got home, he was in control of the radio. Before he got home, Maren was in control of the radio. So.
I see.
So.
That's how you got your news as well, I
Yes.
suppose. Do you remember, we're going back and forth because I didn't plan out this well enough, but do you remember anything about the war? You were obviously about 9 years old when it ended, I guess?
Yeah. I remember the day that they said Pearl Harbor was bombed. I remember that.
You would have been young for that.
Yeah, well, 41. Yeah, but I remember the
Sure.
talk. You know,
That's got to be one of your first memories, I guess.
Yeah. Of course, really, I guess we really didn't know what war was. You know,
No. Yeah.
back then. But anyway, one of the things I remember, and I don't know if it was during the war or right after the war, one of the generals, was it General Wainwright, came to start, and we had a big parade. You see pictures sometimes up in Sonny's, like that. And I was the Brownie Scout, and I was the only Brownie Scout in the parade with the Girl Scouts. And we went up to a table where he was, and he said I looked like a little wet squirrel, and I thought that was so wonderful, you know. So, I guess because I'm brown and dark and wet, which wasn't a compliment.
I was not used to dealing with little girls probably at that point. So, do you remember start getting that influx of people? Do you remember a lot of people being in town?
Oh my goodness, yeah, because Mama rented rooms, 2 of our bedrooms out to the soldiers and their wives.
Which was, I guess, quite common at that time.
Yeah, everybody that had a room, and sometimes people would beg to even sleep on your porch, you know, they were so desperate.
Because I think Stark went from a tiny little town, probably smaller than it is now, to like 80,000 people or something like that.
Oh, I don't know, but Stark was nothing compared to what it is now, you know.
Right.
Because where you're living was out in the country, really, you know.
Right. Wow. Do you remember the end of the war? Anything about that? A celebration, you know, V-Day or?
You know, right offhand, Larry, I can't remember, and I'm sure there was a lot to do over that.
Right.
And I just can't recall it right now.
And one of the things that to think about, you know, as we go back in time, it seems like so long ago when World War II happened, but Granddaddy McRae was 41 when it started, right? And 45 or so when it ended. That's, you know, he's my age when it, older than me when it ended.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, you think so far back, you remember, well, I remember Granddaddy, and you know, it's always been kind of strange to me. But tell me, going back to where I was on my list, tell me about your house and Dad's first house.
We bought a house in Jacksonville. After he came back from overseas, he was driving back and forth, and we were going to sell this, you know, we wouldn't have all that long drive. So we went to Jacksonville and bought this little 2-bedroom block house in Venetia Terrace. And that was a learning experience. Well, it took him as long to get from there to his work as it did from start to his work. And we both found out we wanted to come back to start, but we had to sell the house. So in about 4 years, we got back to start, but it was a good lesson, you know. And
made some lifelong friends there.
good friends, yeah. And also, Mary's husband's sister lived across the street from us.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's a small world.
It really is.
Yeah.
So again, we're skipping around a little bit, but how long were you married before Dad was drafted?
We were married in 55, March of 55, and he was drafted in August of 56. So a little over a year.
A little over a year. Where was your wedding at?
At the Presbyterian church, but it was just his mom and daddy in Franklin, and then my immediate family. Because your daddy didn't want a big wedding, so that's how it worked out.
It's a pretty big wedding for the Nazworths.
Yeah.
So when he was drafted, what did you do?
What did I do? Well, we had an apartment, and I stayed there for about 3 months.
This was in
Start. And Mom and Daddy wanted me to move back with them, but I got spoiled. I had hot running water, and I told Daddy, if you'll get a place with hot running water, I'll pay the difference. So we found this place that was Daddy's forever after, and it was a wonderful thing for Mama, though, to have hot running water. And this little house was a nice, neat little house, and the one they lived in was it was rented, and it was really in bad shape. So there was a blessing from that, your daddy being drafted, and that's what I consider a blessing.
And how long was he over in Korea?
Okay, he left in January of 57, and he came back in May of 58. So it was like 16 months he was gone. But 2 weeks going and 2 weeks coming back on the boat, you know.
I seem to recall a story about a plane ride you took around that time when he was drafted. Is that right?
I went out to Washington State. And I spent a week out there before he was shipped over. And yeah, I guess it was my first commercial plane ride, and it was back, you know, with the motor, and there was mostly, I guess they were Cubans that was on the plane. Except one lady I sat by, it was real nice, but she was American. So.
And your next plane ride was 30 years later? 40 years later?
However many.
A long time later. You said that was your first commercial flight. Did you fly in another plane?
We went up. They used to have an airport out by, well, I guess the one we maybe went out was by middle school, you know, where the church is. Back there, that was all an empty thing, and they had a little airport there. And I can't remember if it was that airport or one on 301 South. It was just a little Piper Club. And we got to go up. And that was amazing, you know. And I was okay as long as that plane was, you know, level, but when it tilted over this way, I was a little bit leery. But it was just an experience, you know, for back then.
Speaking of transportation, what are your memories on cars? What's the first car you remember your dad having?
1936 Ford. We had it for a long time. We went down to Miami, well, Key West actually. Pile 7 in the car, no air conditioning, you know.
How many was the car designed to seat?
Probably 5, you know, but...
Did you get put in the middle?
No, I got to sit up on Mama's lap. Yeah.
So in the middle was taking over, okay.
Yeah, 4 in the back, so...
That's a long drive.
Yeah, back then it was really.
Times when we were little that something kind of funny happened, or maybe you'd like to talk about some of the little trips we took, like the time we went down into Miami, remember, and Key West.
I had that in mind when you was asking that. Yes, we were all together on the trip. Then we had 2 or 3 trips to Pensacola when you were little. Some of those trips were sad trips because we'd have to go out to a funeral maybe.
The one I remember most, I'm talking about when all 7 of us were packed in a 36 Ford. And the only time you stopped was to get gas.
What was the problem with that?
When you got 7 people packed in a 36 Ford and no air conditioning. And remember,
I tell you, the air conditioning didn't worry us then because nobody knew anything about it.
remember when we stayed at the motel and we woke up the next morning and there was crabs all over the ground?
Yes, that was down in Miami.
Yeah. And we wouldn't walk out in the yard because we were afraid of crab would crash.
It'd still be a long drive with that many kids.
Well, we didn't say are we there yet because we never been anywhere, so we were just looking everywhere. So.
What was life like when Dad came back from Korea?
Well, that's when we found out about the driving back and forth, you know, and buying the house, all that. But I'm telling you, it was awful being away from him that long, and it was really bad over in Korea it was bad. They had bad living conditions over there, cold and, you know, just.
Yeah, I remember some Dad's stories about the snow and of course he didn't want to be there in the first place.
Yeah,
most people
absolutely.
didn't, but for a Florida boy to go have to stay in that for a while is a big change.
But at least the war was over, you know.
Right. Good. In the 50s were pretty prosperous times for the country, good times, you remember?
Yeah.
And what were you doing that time as far as work goes? You weren't still working at the dime store, were you?
Oh no, after graduation I got a job. I was engaged then, and people didn't want to really hire an engaged girl because they thought, well, she'll get married and have a baby right away. But anyway, I got a job at, they call it Big Dad Manufacturing. It's where a mattress place is now on Brownlee Street. And as a secretary. And I worked there not long, maybe 3 or 4 months, and I got an opportunity to go to work for Judge Patton. So that was really a big deal.
So you worked in what's now Santa Fe College. You worked there in that courthouse.
The old courthouse.
And you were his secretary?
Yeah. And I worked there about 4 years until your daddy came back from Korea, and then we moved to Jacksonville. So that was, and then when we came back from Jacksonville, I wasn't really looking for a job, but I lived down the street from Jimmy and Helen Crosby, and she worked at the bank. And she told me there was a bank opening, and oh, it was just short hours and everything. Anyway, when I went in for interview, Mr. Pete knew Judge Patton real well, so he found out I worked for Judge Patton, so he hired me like, can you come to work now, you know? Yes. But I gotta go call my mama and tell her I'm not gonna be home. So anyway, I worked there, and then I got a chance to go to work for Judge Jan. And because I didn't have to work on Saturdays, and at the bank I had to work on Saturdays. So anyway, God just provided jobs all along the way. And at Judge Jan's office, I've met one of my dearest friends, Dolores and Anita. But that's been Dolores has been such a blessing in my life.
Yeah, I always called her Aunt Dolores. So
Yeah.
meant to her close friend, I guess, if you call me Aunt.
Yeah.
So, I'm still good friends with you. I know she moved around and came back to start and all that good stuff. So, why did you quit?
Why did I quit? I'm looking at it.
Well, I see. You're looking at his brother, right?
No, I didn't quit until.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
So, how did life change when you became a mom?
Oh goodness, it's just a completely different life. And I tell you, you don't know what love is until you have a child, really. You think, I mean, you love your spouse and all, but having children, that's, you know that. It's just such a special blessing.
Right.
So,
Something that depends totally on you.
yeah.
Has no control. And maybe one day does, and then takes over your kitchen, eats all your food. And not that we did that.
Oh, no.
But
No, you didn't.
no. See. Tell me about a happy memory or memories from Greg and mine's childhood. Anything special come to mind?
I think one of the special things was Mom and Daddy took us to Orlando, to Disney World, and y'all didn't know it until we got on the road because I was so afraid something would happen and I didn't want y'all to know about it. So that was a real happy memory with y'all going to Disney World.
Yeah, no, that's a big deal as a kid.
Yeah, and this wasn't anything like it is now, which probably is even better, but it was, you know,
Right.
entertainment.
What else do you remember?
About y'all's
Just anything in particular.
Well, Christmas time, you know, with the toys and Santa Claus doings and all, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Still have memories of those, waking up on Christmas morning and going in there and Santa came, Santa came. Get up, Mom. I recall a story about before I was a baby and somebody was staying with him at the house and there was a flood. And
Oh yeah.
tell me about that.
Something happened. They say it was on account of DuPont, something to do with that. But I was at work, and one of the deputies came in and said, "You need to check on your house. That there's flooding out there." So I went out there and I couldn't get up in the drive. It was flooded over the culvert, and Mr. Connor took. I called Louise that kept Greg, and told her to pack up, diapers and bottles and stuff, and go down to Mr. Connor's. So he put her and Greg in the boat and pulled them across the culvert. So, but it was, it was traumatic for me. And I was going to stay. We were going to stay with Mom and Daddy, Well, when your daddy got home from work, So we went to Miss Williams' culvert and squished through all that place and went to the house. But the next morning it had gone down, so we could use it. But, ooh, yeah, that was scary.
Yeah. Speaking of another scary moment, again, this is probably before my time, but I remember the neighbor's brother or somebody got held up, and you remember that?
Miss Connor's brother?
I guess it was.
Yeah, he was kind of, he should have been in a mental place.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they said he went after Vi with a knife, I think, and Donald. Anyway, they ran to Miss Williams and they called the sheriff's office. And they had a shed back there and some grapevines, it seems like. Anyway, they came to the house and told us to leave through the back way. Well, your daddy wouldn't do it. So he put Greg and I in the back bedroom and pulled up the mattress and everything, And he got his gun and went to the window and watched. But the deputies had to shoot this guy. And it was...
Sad.
Yeah.
So, after I was born and you had two youngins, one 2.5 and one 0 to take care of, you quit your job at some point. And then how did life change? You became a stay-at-home mom.
Well, it was really nice not to have to get up and go to work or worry about, your children. Because after Louise quit, Louise Hudson, she had a baby, so she had to quit.
Okay.
She was wonderful. She was a Christian, wonderful lady. And so I went through, I guess, 1 or 2 babysitters, and they didn't work out. So it was good. And then Lord watches after us. then after you were born, you had, you know, your heart problems. So that was a good thing that I wasn't working.
Right.
So, but God watched after you, so that was good.
Yes. After a few years, and I remember Mr. McKinney, who was the principal at Southside, coming up in the car, and this is one of my early memories, to talk to you. And I guess you got offered a job
Yes.
at Southside Elementary School as what we called a teacher's aide back then, now a paraprofessional, I guess. What did you like about that job?
Well, I loved it because I was with y'all, you know, and you get to know the teachers and what's going on and everything. And when he hired me, it was supposed to be a 6-month temporary job. Well, it turned out 22 years, you know, and that's when I quit, but retired. But anyway, it was, I loved that job, I really did. And especially when I first started, because it was a part-time job, and that was even better. But
do you realize how difficult it was as a child to not be able to get away with anything because your mom knew all the teachers and was there? And
it's so sad, I'm telling
it was a rough life. I managed to get by.
you. Yeah.
Stay out of trouble most of the time. Tell everyone watching why I'm the favorite child.
Well, I have a favorite first child and a favorite last child.
That makes sense. I've got 3, so I've got a favorite first and a favorite last as well. And a favorite middle, if he's watching. What is one of your most favorite memories of all times, excluding getting married and having children? What comes to mind?
Oh, okay, I can tell you that.
All right.
My first grandchild. Really.
Yeah.
It was. It was something I looked forward to because I didn't think I was ever going to get one. And then when I did, I got 5 and 6 years. So.
Well, that's true. I did my part.
Yeah.
And,
But it was exciting.
yeah, and just happened to coincide when you retired.
It did.
It did.
See,
How amazing is that?
I'm telling you, God has blessed me so much all my life, really.
And any other particular memories? I'll tell you one of mine, and you fill in the blanks here. People older than me remember when President Kennedy was shot. I remember when President Reagan was shot. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I remember going home and getting in front of the TV. I mean, we did have TV, but it only had 3 channels, or unless you counted PBS, and that's 2 more, I suppose. And we sat in front of the TV, actually on the floor, and I remember you praying with us, praying for the president. Do you remember when that happened and all that?
But I don't remember that particular thing about praying, but I know in my heart, anything like that. We've had so many tragedies, in the government. Like,
you're the most generous person I've ever known. What makes you that way?
I guess it was because Mama had a lot of influence. There was never a hobo that came through, and we lived like half a block from the railroad track. And we found out that they put a big old X mark on you. We had, front porches back then. If they could, get something. I mean, Mama, we didn't have much, but Mama always managed to make them a sandwich and probably give them a glass of water if we didn't have Kool-Aid, But she was that way with everybody, and she would help people she didn't even know. She'd go to their house and help them physically, that way. And I'm sure she had the most influence on my life.
Now, tell me about those hobos. Were those people that just wouldn't work, or was it because of the Depression?
It was, I think people just couldn't find work, Larry, and probably up north, they were probably coming from the north going down to maybe where they could get work on farms and all. So, but there wasn't never anything scary about them. I didn't fear them.
How has the state changed over the years?
Oh my goodness! Just even locally, look at Stark. It's just tripled, I guess. And Jacksonville, you wouldn't believe, used to, we'd go downtown Jacksonville to shop, because downtown had the stores and all, just
Right.
like Gainesville.
Mhm.
That little square was a shopping place you could go to. But everything's just grown, and it's grown out,
No. Because even Star 301 used to run through downtown instead of around downtown.
Yeah.
What's changed about Bradford County the most? Or has anything changed about Bradford County besides the Walmart?
Larry? Just a lot of people moving in, from other places or retiring. And a lot of them are leaving places like Jacksonville because either it's too crowded or it's taxes or whatever their reason is. They're getting away. I think the older you get, you don't want all that, traffic and stuff.
I agree with that. You and your sisters seem to still have a good relationship. I'm not saying you ever had a bad one. I don't know that you ever did. But how has that relationship formed? Why are you guys so close?
I guess because we were raised, the way we were raised. And you were raised to respect each other and each other's property. And that's not just siblings, that's anybody, Mom and Daddy taught us we didn't step on our neighbor's property unless they said it was okay. We didn't take shortcuts through yards and stuff like that. But we're just so blessed in our family because I'm the baby and I'm 77. That's a record,
Really?
And we just, I don't know, we just have love for each other.
That's a legacy that's handed down from your parents.
Yeah.
I guess when you ride for 2 days in a 36 Ford, you get close to each other.
Oh, yeah.
That is something that's been passed down, and that's a great thing. Because you always want to know, what are your kids going to be like when they're older? Are they going to be close? Are they going to continue to be brothers that fight with each other, or what? So, did you guys ever fight as kid?
Well,
were you all perfect? You were perfect.
We're angels. But I didn't fight because I was little, from the rest of them. But I don't ever remember them. And of course, Barney was the only boy, so we just thought he was, the icing on the cake, So.
One last question for you.
Okay.
A long, long time from now, what do you want people to remember about you when you're gone? A long time from now.
Just that I love the Lord and I appreciate all that He's blessed me with. And my wonderful children and their children. Yeah, I'm blessed, Larry. God has blessed me all my life. And I want people to know that and to trust Him, to trust Jesus with all your worries. If you have them, we shouldn't worry, but we do. And that God will take care of us.
All right. Anything else you want to add? Anything you want me to ask you?
Nothing I know of right now. You ask good questions.
Thanks, Mom.
I love you.